Our first case comes from 1922 in Weidhofen, Germany. A family of 5 and their housemaid were brutally murdered, and what's stomach-curdling is there's reason to believe that the killer had been on the property for days after the murders, even taking care of the livestock. This case is considered one of the gruesome and puzzling unsolved cases in German history, and it's coming up to the 100th anniversary of the murders. This is the Hinterkaifeck murders. Welcome to Case of Conspiracy. I'm your host, Lachie.
Oh shit, sorry.
I don't care, I'm keeping it in.
I'm
Go!
I'm sorry.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Thorne, your friendly neighborhood goblin boy.
Get your right out for the lads.
Insert theme.
Jesus Christ. No, leave that in.
Yeah, leave that in, surely.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, so this is the Hinterkaifeck murders. Basically a family of 5, which is the husband Andreas Gruber and Cecilia Gruber, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabrielle, her 2 children Cecilia, as well as Joseph. So we'll basically be saying Cecilia Jr. for the grandchild.
Yeah.
Okay.
To avoid confusion because they have the same name.
Telling you right now, I'm already gonna forget names.
That's fine.
Ooh.
The housemaid Maria Baumgartner, who was 44, also found with the rest of the bodies. Victoria had a late husband, Carl Gabriel, who was killed in combat in France in 1914 during the Great War. So you got any thoughts on the initials of this case?
Oh, big family.
Yeah, man. I mean, not really. It's the grandparents, the daughter, and 2 grandkids.
I mean, I guess, but 3 generations in one house.
Yeah.
You said like plus them like housemaid?
Yeah, Maria B.
Yeah.
She's good as well with them.
So, Maria was their housemaid and had only been there for a day.
Oh,
Aw.
So she
that's a shit
basically
gig.
arrived that day, and then yeah,
Rest in
that's fun.
peace.
About luck. Jesus.
We're gonna start with before the murders. Strange things began to happen around the Hinterkaifeck property shortly before the gruesome attacks. 6 months before the crime, the previous maid, I apologize if I butcher all these names, Crescens Reiger, quit. She claimed that she'd quit due to her belief of the household being haunted. She heard strange noises in the attic as well as a mumbling voice. After she left, the other members of the household started hearing the footsteps and the mumbles.
Uh-oh.
Nope. Don't
Not
like
bad
it.
that one. She knew something was coming.
They went to investigate. Well, Andreas went to investigate, but he couldn't find anything in the attic to assume that there was anyone there. So they went on.
Why would you investigate it yourself?
Exactly.
I never understand that.
This was in a time in the world where police basically, men wanted to be men and do not want to get the police involved.
Also,
Basically.
he's a grandparent. How old is this man?
He is 63.
Oh, okay, it's not as old as I thought.
Damn.
I was thinking, is if his grandparent, then like, gone up to face someone his own at his age, but yeah.
Yeah. So in early March, the father of the house, Andreas, found the strange-looking newspaper from Munich, which was about 70 kilometers from the household. Andreas hadn't purchased the newspaper and decided to ask the neighbors about it to see if they had any knowledge. No one else in the village seemed to have known anything of the newspaper, as they hadn't bought it either. Days before the murder had taken place, Andreas also discovered tracks that had been left fresh in the snow, leading from the forest to the farm machine room, basically the tool shed. The lock had been broken. He investigated, and didn't find anything at all. What's even more confusing is that there were no footprints leading out of the barn either.
Hmm.
I like it. I don't like it.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't...
No,
Don't like it.
if that was me, I would be burning that place down.
Yeah,
Burn
it's
it,
like,
burn
that's
it down. Yeah. He had also told the neighbours that a house key had also gone missing before the murders. Later that night, they heard footsteps in the attic. So Andreas went to investigate, but no one found any traces of an intruder. Despite telling several people about the strange things that had been happening around the property, he refused to accept any help, and the instances went unreported to the police.
Why?
Why?
I understand it's like a time where, you know, men must be men and not ask for help. But come on, ask another man. Surely.
Yeah.
Exactly. You'd
Oh,
think...
I feel like there's a certain point where you just call the cops. Like,
Yeah, like, if you're hearing, like, strange sounds in the attic and mumbling voices...
Well, yeah, and then there's like tracks leading to your house. A key goes missing. Ask for help if you can't find anything.
Well, especially if there are fresh tracks in the snow, heading to the machine room, and, you know, none leading out. You know, I don't care if you're going to be in there for a while, you gotta search that place top to bottom. Like, there's definitely got to be someone in there, and you can leave that place alone? Like, that's crazy.
nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Before we go any further, we should also note that Victoria and Carl didn't have a very strong marriage. Carl is the late husband. His full name is Carl Gabriel. So they didn't have a strong marriage, with Carl moving to his parents from the farm after just a few weeks of being wedded. So basically, he got to the house, was there for a couple of weeks, and then he decided, no, I'm gonna go live with my parents, because he didn't like that. In addition to this, Victoria and her father, Andreas, were in an incestuous relationship.
What?
Oh,
Their relationship was well known throughout the village, with multiple witnesses, including former housemaid as well as neighbours, that there was well documented court files.
yep. There it
What the
is.
fuck?
On the
Fuck
20th... Exactly.
God.
Yicky. It's uncertain of if this was like a mutual relationship or not,
No.
because there had been cases of neighbors and other people in the village saying that he wasn't really very nice to people, especially his family, like just not being basically kind of emotionally abusive.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess
So-
that it wasn't a choice for him
Yeah.
in the beginning.
I mean, who really knows? Because we don't have anything saying that she was against it, but we also don't have anything saying, you know, that it was
Either way,
mutual.
What the fuck, man?
Yeah, basically, what the fuck?
Like, we already knew this man made poor choices, and then we just add incest onto it. That's great.
Oh,
Exactly. So, on the 28th of May in 1915, the pair were convicted of incest within the period being from 1907 and 1910, resulting in Victoria being sentenced to 1 month in prison and Andreas being sentenced to 1 year in prison. In late 1919, they were once again convicted of incest from the 13th of September to the 25th of September, but were both acquitted of those charges.
So
The
what,
te-
they were charged, and then they went to prison, and then they just continued?
It's uncertain at this point, but I mean, obviously, because Carl and Victoria didn't have a strong relationship and he knew of the relationship, so I assume that it must have continued.
oh
God.
no.
In the afternoon of March 13, 1922. The new housemaid Maria had just arrived at the farm. Maria's... Exactly. Bad fucking choice. Maria's sister had escorted her to the property and left the farm after a short stay, just in the afternoon, just to make sure that she's settled in. Maria's sister was most likely the last person to see all of them alive. In the evening, Andreas said, "My little cummy wummy." In the evening, Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and Cecilia Jr. were all lured into the family barn. One by one, each were brutally murdered. Evidence shows that Cecilia Jr. had been alive for several hours after her injuries, the only person not to receive a fatal blow.
Oh,
shit.
She was found with tufts of hair in her hands while she laid in the straw. She was the only one of the four not killed instantly with fatal blow, as the murderer, instead of hitting her, had slit her throat with a knife.
Oh shit.
Fuck.
Was it human hair that she had?
Yeah, it was her own hair. So basically she was sat
fuck.
there for hours, not being able to do anything, but basically rip her hair out.
Ooh.
The killer then moved on to the living quarters, where he'd killed the housemaid Maria in the bedroom, and lastly killed baby Joseph in the cot. The murder weapon is believed to be a mattock, which is kind of like a pickaxe, but mainly used for digging, prying, and chopping.
Okay. Right.
So basically, when they had their investigation, they whittled it down to being a blow to the head with a mattock. Cecilia Jr. was... had a slit in her throat, basically.
Fuck.
The evidence left shows that the killer or killers had been left in the property for 3 days after the murders, as the cattle had been fed and the food from the kitchen was eaten in the days following. The bodies were not discovered until 4 days later. A farmer on his way home passed the property at 3 a.m. on the 1st of April, just hours after the murders. The farmer said that he saw two unknown figures at the edge of the forest, and when the strangers saw him, they turned around so that he could not see their faces.
Oh. Two.
Yeah.
I
So
had a theory, but now it's broken.
he's basically saying two people, April
Who found
1st,
them?
who found them? That's an interesting question. On the April 1st, basically the next morning, two door-to-door salesmen arrived at the property, hoping to sell some coffee beans. You know, they got beans to sell. You know, they've got to make sure everyone's having their spicy bean.
On that bean business.
Exactly. Can I have my spicy bean?
This is dumb jokes.
So they went to sell some coffee. They walked around the property, but after no one responded to them knocking on the door and the windows, they decided to leave. They did, however, notice that the door to the machine house was open, but decided to not look. If they did, the bodies would have been found much faster. Sometime between 3 to 5 p.m. that day, two hunters had stopped by to purchase some goods from the farm. They left after seeing that no one was there and there was no smoke coming from the chimney. So they basically said that there was no smoke coming from the chimney, no one's home, gonna leave.
Yeah.
At 11:30 p.m. that night, so there's 3 separate instances of people coming on that same day. I apologize if I butcher this. Michael Plockle had passed over the Hinterkaifeck farm on the way home. He'd stopped and noticed that a light in the oven and smoke was rising up from the chimney. He later described that smoke had a disgusting smell. Moments later, a man come up to Michael with an outstretched arm and a lantern in his hand. The man held a light up to Michael's face, turned around and went back to the courtyard. Shaking with fear, Michael ran away.
Yeah.
What the? Oh my god.
Yeah. So imagine
The right idea.
imagine you pass by and you basically, you know, have someone with an outstretched arm and a lantern in their hand, and then they just turn away and walk away with not saying anything at all.
Terrifying.
I just got the chills, like, imagining it. Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, so someone was using their oven after they killed them?
Yeah, so basically they'd stayed in the house for the next 3 days.
Oh, shit.
And they were, you know, using their food and milking the cows and all that sort of stuff.
At least they're keeping the farm running.
Exactly, gotta have some fresh milk, you know?
So it's possible here that the coffee people knocked on the door and the murderer was inside, essentially.
So basically it's possible that, you know, the people that were trying to sell the coffee, as well as the hunters that were trying to buy goods, were knocking on the door of someone inside had already murdered them and was still waiting there.
That's fucked up. Man got ballsy, start cooking.
I wonder if they like left the. Did they like leave the bodies? Like the people that ended up running the farm, did they like leave the bodies there, or did they try to cover it up?
So we'll get to that later.
Oh, so my bad.
We'll get to that later.
Jumping the gun.
Keep that in mind, though. On the 2nd of April, when the family were absent from Sunday worship, Victoria was a singer in the church choir. 2 of her friends went to the farm to meet her to go together, and no one was in sight. Cecilia Jr., her school had noticed that she was absent without any excuse on the 3rd and the 4th of April, which is quite unlike her. The postman also noticed all of the mail and stuff had been like piling up over the past few days, and hasn't been no note left saying that they've gone away.
The worst part about this is all the people visiting the house that, like, this dude has already killed 6 people and potentially could want to kill more.
Exactly. I mean, imagine knowing that had happened and being in investigating this sort of stuff and being like, you know, your other police chief had gone somewhere. I would feel so much chills just being there by myself, basically.
Oh yeah.
The postman also noticed that no one was in the residence when he had come by. Usually he would have seen Cecilia and baby Joseph in the kitchen, but no one was in sight at all. The big day of April 4th, a repairman had arrived to the Hinterkaifeck to repair a food chopper engine. He waited for around an hour. Seeing that no one was there, he decided to get to work on the repairs, and that the family would be home anytime soon so that they could discuss anything when they had arrived. But when the man was finished with the repairs, no one came home, so he went on his way and just told the neighbors that they'd made the repairs and that everything should be good to go, basically. 3:30 p.m. the same day, the neighbor Lorenz Schlittenbauer decided to send his son Johannan, who was 16, and his stepson Joseph. So this is another Joseph, who was 9, to the Hinterkaifeck to see if they could find any sign of the family.
Oh no.
They returned to the household and told their father that they didn't see anything at all, and they had not seen anyone in the residence.
Oh.
So basically they didn't have a good look because they didn't see that the machine room was open.
Well, to be fair, they're children. Don't send children in to look for a family.
I mean,
kind of messed up.
If you want to find people, you don't send children to do it.
Yeah,
they probably went and like knocked on the door, and then were like, "All right, bye."
Yeah, pretty much, most likely. So they returned to their household and told their father that they hadn't seen anyone at all. So Lorenz decided to head down to the farm himself with his friends Michael and Jacob. The 3... yeah. Good one, Jacob. The 3 men got to the property, knocked on the door, and got no answer. One of the men noticed that the machine shop door was open, and the 3 men went to investigate. Once they went into the machine shop, they discovered the bodies of Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and Cecilia Jr. in with Lorenz interacted with, contaminating the crime scene. So basically, he had gone and, moved the bodies. When the three men went to check out the house, Lorenz produced a key and opened the front door.
What?
The door key was said to be the key missing a day before the murders.
Lorenz.
When Lorenz entered the house alone, he then found the bodies of Maria and baby Joseph. So an update on the timeline. Basically, the 31st of March was the night of the murders. Two strangers were seen nearby the house at the woods, basically. Saturday on the 1st of April, two salesmen and two hunters find no one at the residence. Michael Pluckle was scared by the man with the lantern. On Sunday, the 2nd of April, no one showed at church, and the suspicions begin to rise. On the 3rd of April, the postman and the school noticed the family's absence, furthering suspicions. And on Tuesday, the 4th of April, the bodies were discovered by Lorenz, Michael, and Jacob.
Oh, man. It's a hefty one.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Do you have
That's what I would like to add.
Do you have any theories at the moment?
A few. Nothing of substance.
Nothing of substance? Nothing that shouts out to you?
I mean, this fucking, what's his name?
Lorenz?
Schlittenbauer guy. Yeah,
Lorenz
that one.
Lorenz Schlittenbauer.
It's suspicious that he has the key.
Yeah.
And you said he found the bodies when he entered the house alone.
Yeah, so basically, he'd entered the house without Michael and Jacob. I'm pretty sure it's Jacob.
Yeah, probably.
So basically, he entered the house without them sort of knowing. So he went in by himself to have a look around the house.
And the criminal always returns to the scene of the crime. My other one was, what's his name? Carl Gabriel.
Carl Gabriel? Yeah?
I wrote it down, I'm not sure if that's correct.
Yeah, so that's the late husband that died in World War One.
Was it confirmed that he died?
I mean, I assume so.
Okay, well, ignore my theory on that one then.
I don't really have any theories or anything, but the way that they were killed, it sort of it feels very personal, specifically of the daughter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The fact that everyone had an instant blow to the head. When someone's killed with an instant blow to the head, it means you don't the killer doesn't really want them to suffer. But they slit her throat. When you slit someone's throat, you clearly want them to suffer and bleed out.
Well,
yeah.
My theory is basically that she was the first person to go into the barn, and she was kind of told to go there, and the person that was in the tool shed basically was caught off guard, and maybe they just had a knife in their hand or on them, so that might be why.
True, or she could have potentially been used as bait, because if she's making the sound after she got a neck slit, that's probably what led the others into the barn.
I can see where you're both coming from. I disagree.
That's fair.
It does feel more personal, it is specifically something different than the rest.
Exactly, and that's kind of what this whole thing is about. It's theorizing about the different things that could have happened.
It just feels I don't have any theories of who I think it is. I think it's very sus of I don't remember any names, by the way. I'm terrible with names, but
yeah, me too.
I think it's very sus that the guy has the key and went in by himself and didn't mention it.
Yeah.
Then again, at the same time, with that time period, was he a neighbor or something?
Yeah, so basically he was another resident of the village and one of their closest neighbors.
So around that time period, neighbors or anything, they had no boundaries. They just sort of did whatever they wanted at each other's property.
Yeah.
There was no real privacy around that time period anyway. I could be wrong, but it just feels weirdly personal and specifically against what was it, Andrea?
Cecilia Jr. Sorry, Cecilia Jr.
There's so many of them.
Yeah. You just call it CJ. There you go. There you go. Hey, CJ.
Which I'm not sure if it adds to the theory, but the fact that people had reported seeing like the oven on and the man with the lantern and shit, right?
So
Lives in the house alone,
basically,
like,
all of those ones that I had said, like the two salesmen, the two hunters, the person that Michael Plock was scared with the man with the lantern, none of that was reported.
Oh, okay.
So
shouldn't about having a clue about this then.
Yeah, exactly. So
Right.
Well, the salesman didn't really have anything to report. They just assumed no one was home.
yeah, exactly.
And then
Yeah.
It's just
The sa-
Michael.
Yeah. So
Michael really should have said something.
Michael really should have stepped up. He should have
You really-
stepped up.
You let us down, Michael.
Exactly.
You really did.
Exactly.
Before we continue, we should probably give a shout out to our sponsor.
Shout out to the sponsor, Lochie Thorne, who produced the music that's in the wonderful background we have right now. Good job, Thorney.
Everyone should check it out.
Exactly. Check it out. Buy
Don't do
his
it,
hat.
Josh.
Nah,
Do
buy
it.
his hat.
Just buy the
The
hat.
three of us are on the album.
True.
Exactly. We are. Holy shit.
Check out our album.
Yeah,
Check out
our album.
Yeah.
And we're Bleach Lizzie.
Lizzie.
Perfect. We are what we are, and we do what we do. And that is bleach our Lizzies.
No.
The killings were investigated by Inspector George Reingruber and his colleagues from the Munich Police Department. The initial investigations were tampered by a number of people that had interacted with the crime scene, moving bodies and items around. The day after the discovery of the bodies, the court physician performed autopsies in the barn, and it was established that a mattock was most likely used as the murder weapon, but at this point no murder weapon was found. So neither of the weapons had been found at all. The heads of the victims were removed and sent to Munich for further examination. However, the heads were lost during World War II and never returned. So basically they sent off heads and they never got them back.
That's great.
I wonder why they sent off the heads.
Yeah, it seems a bit weird.
Specifically.
So basically the heads of the bodies had like precise cuts with like the knife basically.
Oh.
I did not mention that earlier.
Yeah, I suppose it's important.
But at the same time, it was like there weren't like they were just random cuts, but they were like precision. They were made just because they wanted. It was deliberate, yeah. But nothing ever came about it.
Oh, because the heads were lost.
Taru! A clear motive to the murders was never fully established. At first, the police suspected it to be a robbery, interrogating travelling craftsmen, inhabitants of the village, and even the homeless nearby. All the police just going after the homeless all the time. When the police found a large amount of money in the house, they abandoned the motive, as anyone who was there for days would have found the money and taken it. Within the inspection record of the court commission, it was noted down that the victims were most likely lured to the barn. By restlessness in the stable. So basically, they, noted down that the animals were making noises, and that's why they were lured to the barn. A later attempt, however, revealed that human screams from the barn could not be heard from the living area. So any sound that was made from that machine shop, you could not hear it from the living space. An investigation wasn't made into the claims of Michael Plock, and the reported person who approached him, or the recently used oven, or the lit fire, so it couldn't be determined what was cooked that night in the oven, or burned in the fire, or who the man could have been. Before we go into the suspect section, there could be another possible motive, but this could not be confirmed. Some people wondered if family members had been involved to inherit the farm. Bernard Gruber, the brother of Andreas, did in fact inherit the farm, but he then sold the farm to the Gabriel family, but only under the conditions they had to tear down the house. No one knows why this was a condition, It could have been to cover up evidence, or it could have been just such a painful memory of his late brother and his family, and he just wanted the house gone, basically. It was at this point that a weapon was discovered. A whole year after the house had been torn down, Andreas's homemade mattock was found covered in blood and was most likely hidden in the attic. It's a fucking crazy attic they got. They can't find shit in there.
Footsteps.
Police check.
Yeah,
Like,
right?
Just the barn?
who knows? Like, you'd feel like you'd search the entire house, especially if someone had said, oh, yeah, they'd been hearing noises in the attic, because the noises had, you know, been told to Lorenz.
Yeah. So they should have investigated that as well.
Exactly. Surely they would, wouldn't they?
Maybe this is why they didn't tell the police in the first place.
After the mattock was found, a penknife was also found in the hay of the barn. The same penknife that was used to slice Cecilia's throat, as well as make distinct small cuts on the other victims. As stated in the investigation, there were no clear motive established, but there are a few suspects. In the middle of May 1927, a stranger was said to have stopped at a male residence of the house in Weidhofen at midnight. The stranger asked him questions about the murders before shouting at him. He then said that he had been the murderer before running into the woods. That stranger was never identified.
What?
So, yeah. The stranger just went up to some random man's house and just asked him questions about the murders, and then shouted that he was the murderer, and then ran into the woods.
A ditch? What?
And this was in 1927. This was 5 years after the murders.
Just
Okay.
asked about what happened and then went, it's a me.
It's a me. He definitely went, it's a me, Mario. Run into the woods.
The origin of Mario.
Oh my god, it makes so much sense though.
So you're sort of plumber.
Suspect number 1, Lorenz Schlittenbauer.
Hey, told you.
Yeah, number 1 suspect.
He's just a suspect. Alright? You're not,
I told you he did it.
Hey, he did it. He definitely did it. The neighbor that you're my detective little boy. I'm gonna get you a Sherlock Holmes hat.
Fuck yeah.
The neighbor that sent his sons into the Hinterkaifeck on the 4th of April to check on the family, the same man that disturbed the bodies in the barn, the one that had the house key, one which had possibly gone missing before the murders. He is a suspect, which should be a surprise to no one at all. Lorenz was their prime suspect, and to this day remains a favourite, being the culprit of the murders. Lorenz came under suspicion from locals in early investigation because of several suspicious actions immediately after the bodies. As stated previously, Lorenz had a key to the front door, which he had used immediately after discovering the bodies in the barn. Lorenz entered the house alone, despite his friends Michael and Jakob being there. When he was questioned why he'd gone in alone, he had said that, "I went in there to look for my son Yosef." At first, the response made no sense, as the 9-year-old stepson Yosef had returned home, so why would he be going looking for him? He then stated, this is a direct quote from Lorenz, "There, I found my son lying in the stroller with his head shattered," admitting that Yosef he was talking about was the 2-year-old child of Victoria.
Oh,
No.
In 1918, after the passing of Lorenz's wife. So basically the wife died in 1918. Apparently Lorenz had started seeing Victoria. Apparently Victoria wanted to marry him, but Lorenz was uncertain that the child was his, as he knew of the incestuous relationship she had with her father.
Oh my god, plot twist. So he has 2 sons named Yosef?
So the other Yosef is the stepson.
Stepson, yeah, okay.
I was not expecting that plot twist.
Lorenz also had a shaky relationship with Andreas, the father, and that's why they never got married.
Well, yeah,
Man.
because Victoria's father wanted to probably keep her for himself. Dirty bastard.
Dirty fucking get here.
That's nasty. Hang on. So he was seeing
Victoria beforehand.
Victoria. So how does he have a stepson?
So he had a wife beforehand, and that wife passed away in 1918. I assume the child was hers from another marriage, and that she had remarried to Lorenz.
Right. So he had a stepson named Joseph and decided to call his child Joseph. Oh, I guess Victoria probably named the child.
Yeah, Victoria probably did.
Well, I guess I can see how he's a suspect now.
Oh yeah.
'Cause,
for
like,
sure.
before I was like, what's his motive? He just sounds like a really weird, nosy neighbor.
Just adds weight to my theory.
Yeah, it's like, I guess it could have been like, I still don't know, because if he took the key to, and then like went into that room and he was like, I need to see my son, or something.
Yeah. Well,
Like, obviously he didn't say it on that same day, but like,
Yeah. He also feels a bit obvious to me. Like I know that's not. It's real life and.
it just feels like a really weird. It doesn't feel completely right. Like, it's a
Yeah.
solid theory as him as a suspect.
yeah.
There's just not enough there.
Yeah, because like it could be like, you know, he was just, I don't know. It feels like he actually like wanted to be with Victoria, but it was just too messy. And one day he
fair
just
enough.
sort of snapped and decided to kill the entire family
Mm-hmm.
and his own son
And the woman he
Exactly.
loved, supposedly.
Yeah.
and the
It's-
poor
yeah.
housekeeper.
But at the same time, Lorenz had his own family, and seeing as the people that murdered the family had stayed in the house for 3 days after the murders, wouldn't
Yeah.
wouldn't his family say, "Oh, something's wrong?
That'd line up if it
Where's
was him.
where's he going all the time?" Basically.
Also, like you said before, Emily, the death of CJ.
Yeah.
It feels way too personal when he didn't seem to.
Yeah.
Like, where's that relationship there?
So, apparently Victoria wanted to marry him, but Lorenz was uncertain of the child that was his, because of the incestuous relationship. He had reported them for their incestuous relationship, but then withdrew his statement.
Oh.
So, basically, later in their relationship, he basically gone to the police and reported the relationship, and then withdrew his statement at a later date. The relationship could also be a clue to how Lorenz had a house key as well.
That's true.
Oh yeah. So like Victoria gave him the house key so that they could sneak around.
Further speculation that he could be the killer was that Victoria demanding financial support for baby Joseph, as by 1921, Lorenz had married another woman and was not directly involved with Victoria. Michael and Jakob also said in their statement that Lorenz appeared unfazed when they uncovered Andreas's bludgeoned corpse. Suspicion...
Well, maybe he didn't love it, you know? Maybe he just like lied and said that he didn't like it. You know, when he was just like, I don't want to marry you because I don't know if the child's mine. Maybe it was like he didn't love her and
that was a good excuse.
was just unfazed at
That's true.
seeing her. Because it sounds like he was probably more phased at seeing like his dead son.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes, he's worried
Also,
about that.
like, hope like dead babies shouldn't get anyone.
True. But the fact that he specifically went looking for it, like, I feel like if he was the killer, then why would he care
Yeah, why
so
would he
much?
need to?
Yeah.
Suspicion loomed over Lorenz for many years after the murders, mainly because of the strange comments and skeptical behaviour that he'd made towards the murders, in indicating that he had knowledge of details that only the killer could have known. In a case file, it shows that a local teacher spotted Lorenz at the site of the demolished farm in 1925. When that teacher asked why he was there, he then stated that the perpetrators attempted to bury the family's remains and it had been hindered by frozen ground. So basically he's saying that they wanted to bury the bodies, but because of how cold it was, the ground became too tough to dig through. This was seen as evidence that Lorenz would have had intimate knowledge of the conditions of the grounds at the time. However, Lorenz was a neighbour and had been familiar with the local land, so he had been making an educated guess. When the police asked him about the presence at the site, he agreed with the teacher's statement, saying, "Yes, that's correct. That was also the case. I found a place in the barn distinct near the place where the bodies were found. A hole about the depth of a shovel had been dug. The excavation was fresh and covered with straw. I still believe that the perpetrators wanted to bury the bodies back then, but the ground was too firm," he said. Before his death in 1941, Lorenz conducted and won several civil claims for slander against others who described him as the murderer. He filed a lawsuit against his former friend Jakob, who was with him at the discovery of the body. Jakob called me a Kaifeck murderer, and I sued him for the insult where he was fined. At the time, he also tried to influence my son Johannes to testify against me. I then reproached Jacob for inciting my son to perjury. So Jakob definitely believed it, that he did actually murder them, and he basically went to his son and said, "Look, your father is the killer here. You need to testify against him."
I don't, like, the more we find out about him, I don't think it's him.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I had that theory and everything, but now, like, listening to that, it's like, what? It really was it this guy? Especially because they're like, he had suspicious behavior that only the killer should know. But it's like he also had a relationship with the family, like that was established.
Well, also,
Yeah.
like, the ground and stuff, and how it's like only the killer would know that they wanted to bury the bodies. It's like, no, he lives in the area. He knows what the ground is like, and when he found the bodies, he looked around. Like,
Yeah.
It's like the
Honestly,
1920s, like-
honestly, he did a better job than the police did.
yeah.
You know?
Well,
The police they just not look. Like,
I
Pretty
think it's hard to do a
much.
better job than the police.
God.
There are a lot of potential motives that would suggest that Lorenz was the killer. The incest, the hatred of Andreas, the parental concerns, the fallout with Victoria, farm inheritance, as if the boy was the last person left alive, the boy would have inherited the farm, and that would have gone to Lorenz, basically.
Yeah, but
The-
his son died.
Yeah,
His son was killed.
exactly.
Like, so that motive is stupid.
Exactly. The weird comments that he'd made and the strange behaviors. Suspects number 2. Anton and Adolf Gump. 2
Uh-huh.
brothers. We don't
Have you heard
know.
about these guys?
We have not heard about these guys.
Right.
In 1951, Crescentia Meyer, which was the first maid, claimed on her deathbed to the pastors Anton Hauber and previously to Pastor August Ritzel that her brothers Adolf and Anton had committed the murders. Wait, give me 1 second. Croissant. No. This is a different person. In 1951, Crescentia Meyer claimed on her deathbed to Pastor Anton Hauber and previously to August Ritzel that her brothers Adolf and Anton had committed the murders. It is fair to assume that she was certain of her brother's involvement as to not only telling the 2 pastors, but also mentioning her suspicions at her father's funeral during 1938. Public prosecutor Andreas Popp investigated the brothers. Despite the lack of evidence, he had no doubts that Adolf had a relationship with Victoria and is even Josef's father. So,
Whoa.
it could have been it.
Victoria.
I know!
My God.
But
Joseph
he's...
has many fathers?
Yeah.
Is this
So-
Mamma Mia? Like,
I know! Mamma Mia!
Mamma mia, right? Yeah. So what would their motive be for these 2 then?
We'll get to that. Adolf had a relationship with Victoria and is even Josef's father. He believed that Adolf committed the murders after learning about Victoria's incest with her father, with the revenge as the motive, and left no witnesses. Crescentia also claimed also claimed by Crescentia also claimed that what the investigator believed was true, alleging that Adolf had been seeing Victoria and became violently angry when he found out about Victoria's incestuous relationship. Adolf was an artisan by trade and travelled the country to sell his work, which was mainly baskets. It was also alleged that Andreas Gruber is once to have said that he would prefer anyone as the father to Josef than the basket maker, which directly relates to Adolf and his line of work. In the end, Pop would never get to question him as Adolf had already died in 1944.
Dang.
Pop set out to visit Anton and planned to catch him off guard, questioning him when proceeded to do so. Eventually, Anton realized what the questioning was about and started to deny everything. Anton was arrested and remained in police custody, with his wife also being questioned multiple times to no avail. It is alleged that Anton told a fellow prisoner that his brother had committed the crime, however he himself was not there and was only told about it. There was apparently a source that claimed all of 15 of Crescentia's siblings, so she has 15 siblings,
My God.
reputed her comments and that she had just made them out of pure hatred that she had for the brothers.
You see, with this one, it's like I can sort of see it could have been Adolf, but then he's dead by the time they
Yeah, but
get
I
this
mean,
lead.
at that, like,
Still doesn't-
in the 1900s, you don't live for that long.
True.
It still doesn't make sense for the brutal murder, of CJ.
Yeah.
That's true.
If that were the case, why would Anton tell the other prisoner that he wasn't involved, but Adolf was the one that committed the murder? Like, how would they get that from the prisoner?
That's true. And who was the prisoner, and what was the proof of his word on that?
It's very true. He could have just made it up, really.
Yeah, because the prisoner might have heard that Anton was involved and be like, yeah, he totally told me, man.
Yeah, pretty much. So, suspect number 3. Carl and Anton Beichler. Oh.
We got another Anton.
Yeah. Carl and Anton Beichler and George Seigel.
So we got 3.
Yes. So
Okay.
these suspects are Carl and Anton Beichler. Those are 2 brothers again.
Oh my god.
And George Seigel.
Don't tell me. All 3 of them with Victoria.
Oh, all 3 at the same time. Ooh.
Let's just keep adding dads to it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Man.
If we think back to the maid who'd quit 6 months before the murders, she suspected Anton, Carl, and George were the culprits. Anton Beichler had helped with the potato harvest on Hinterkaifeck so that he would know the premises. Crescens also said that Anton talked to her quite often about the family living there and reportedly suggested that the family ought to be dead.
Oh.
What?
So basically, Anton talked to Crescens quite a lot and said that, you know, this family ought to be dead. She
Yeah,
also,
okay.
yeah,
Yes,
pretty much. She also emphasized that the farm dog barked at everyone but never barked at Anton.
The hell?
So who knows there? One night, a stranger came to Crescent's window and spoke to her. It turns out that she was in a love affair with Anton, as per Anton's police statement, and he would come to her window often at night.
I bet.
I bet. Come at,
Maybe that's
come
why the
on
dog
the
didn't bark
window.
at him then.
Possibly. Or he did something
was
bad
there
to
a
the
lot.
dog and the dog was scared of him.
No, I don't have the dog.
Nah, he had treats in his pockets.
Probably.
Yeah.
Nah, he had
Probably.
potatoes, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Dang. Dog's out for some chips.
Give us some spud.
You want some food? This particular night, however, Crescent suspects it was Carl instead and not Anton's voice.
What?
On another particular night, however, He suspects that another person was Carl instead, as it was not Anton's voice. Carl allegedly asked about the family, especially if Victoria and Andreas were sleeping in the same bed that night, and she refused to answer the question.
Uh-oh.
George gets brought into this when we discover that he had previously broken into the house back in 1920 and had stolen a number of items, which George denies doing. George did claim, however, that he carved the handle of the murder weapon when he was working at the farm and knew where the mattock would have been kept.
Okay.
So basically, he crafted the handle of the weapon that was used, and he knew where the weapon would have been kept.
Bit sus. What were they called? Sorry, the Bickler brothers?
Yeah. Carl and Anton Bickler and George
Bickler.
Siegel.
George Siegel. I don't know. I mean, it's... They said they...
How are the three of them connected? Are they all three brothers?
So...
Two brothers and Siegel.
A friend?
Yeah, I believe it was their friend.
But George had stolen from them previously.
Yeah, so about 2 years before the murders, he had stolen from them.
Right. So it was like the three of them were working on the farm. Anton had an affair with the house.
You know what? I could be wrong about 3 of them working on the farm at the same time.
The fact that nothing was stolen with this lot.
So
Absolutely terrifying.
the 2 brothers were connected because instead of Anton going to the window, it was Carl instead. She basically noticed that it was Carl instead, and it was not Anton's voice. He asked about the family, if Victoria and Andreas were sleeping together that night, but left when she refused to answer.
Yeah.
But I don't know why they were basically placed in the same sort of suspect thing. So that's why I kept them all together. They are put together because apparently they are friends.
Right.
So George is one of their friends. So he would basically know his way around the property. He would know his way around the house because he'd reportedly been stealing stuff from there. But it just doesn't make sense because nothing was stolen. Nothing was stolen.
Yeah.
So that...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Suspects number 4. The Tula brothers. The Tula brothers.
Oh. Got shorter?
Yeah, man. It is spelled Thaler. The Tula brothers. Oh, brother. The maid had also suspected the Tula brothers, who were known as criminals in the area primarily for burglary. Yosef Tula appeared at her bedroom window. What's with all these Yosefs?
Why?
Yeah,
What's
right.
with everyone appearing at the bedroom window?
Yosef Thaler appeared at her bedroom window in the middle of the night. Yeah, what the fuck is with the people just meeting her at the window?
Terrifying.
Get away from this woman. Tula questioned her about the family, where they were sleeping, if Andreas and Victoria were sleeping together. After hearing rustling of leaves, she asked who was with him. Yosef said no one, but she was certain that someone else was there, and she assumed it was his brother. When the brother finally left, she had seen that they'd gone to the machine room, the same building that was broken into months later.
Why are these people so bold? Like, this is, like, terrifying.
Exactly. That scared the shit out of me. Someone appears at my window. I'm like, what the fuck? What are you doing here?
Like, I understand it's a different time, but they're just like,
Even
tell us
so,
about the family.
it's so ugh.
What, like, knock knock, hey, tell us about
Yeah.
the family you're like, tell us about the family you clean for. Who's with you? No one. It's just the wind. Like, what?
Also, again, the motivation with this would be money.
Exactly.
Because you said they're burglars, right? So, like...
But again,
I
they were
mean-
asking about if Victoria and Andreas were sleeping together still, like in the same
Yeah.
bed.
Yeah.
Also, is this the same former maid that's accusing them as the like Siegel and all them?
Accusing him of what? What?
So the
Oh
Taller
yeah,
brothers.
yeah. So she's basically her prime suspects of the Taller brothers, as well as the Carl, Anton, and George.
What was the former maid? I mean, like the new maid came in, and then that's when this all.
Yeah, man.
happened.
Maybe it was her.
That's the maid. It's the maid.
Maybe she didn't leave. Maybe she just went to the attic. Whoa. All right, our final suspect, and Thorney's gonna love this one.
Uh-oh.
Am I?
Aliens.
Carl Gabriel. Carl
Oh.
Gabriel.
I knew it.
Victoria's deceased husband Carl was a suspect in this case, despite being killed 8 years before the murders in France during World War One.
I knew it.
His body was never recovered, leading to the speculation that he never actually died and returned
what
to
I said.
Hinterkaifeck and committing the murders.
That's what I said.
Can you not be so excited about this?
Sorry.
I know, right? People died. People died, Thorny.
I'm excited that I'm a good cop. Wait, hang on.
Ludwig Maxel and Schrohenbassen, the chief of police, believed this theory as he thought that it could be possible that Carl could have returned and taken revenge on Victoria's incestuous affair. At the end of World War II, war captives from the region of Schrobenhausen were released prematurely from Soviet captivity. The captives claimed that they had been sent home by a German-speaking Soviet officer who claimed that he was the Hinterkaifeck murderer.
What?
However,
He said this?
he said this apparently. However, some of the men later revised their statements, which diminished their credibility. What's with people revising shit? Many had the theory of the Soviet was Carl Gabriel, because those that had claimed to have seen Carl after his death testified that in fact he went to Russia. Carl Gabriel was also reportedly seen near Hinterkaifeck in 1918, well after his reported death in 1914. A fellow comrade alleges that Carl was on home leave in 1918, visited Hinterkaifeck, but then left immediately upon seeing Victoria was pregnant. The comrade alleges that Carl said that he was going to kill them all. Witness testimonies also claimed that Carl was treated poorly by Andreas and Cecilia Sr. and would complain at the lack of food that he was receiving whilst he was there. While Carl being the killer is an entertaining theory, and it's by far the most far-fetched in the case. We can now put this theory to rest, as in December 1923, it was confirmed by Central Prosecution Officer of War Losses and War Graves that Carl was buried in a comrade grave in St. Laurent. So it's a very good theory, and it was one that was actually searched upon, but nothing came out of it.
Oh, something came out of it. It was proved wrong.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean,
Aw,
who knows if
You got so excited.
who knows if the body was in that grave though.
Oh. Yeah, I reckon it was the old maid.
You reckon it was the old maid?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
For sure, guaranteed.
Now,
I guess maybe
Bella,
you were right.
I don't know if you want to chime in and tell them about the recent studies,
Excuse
if you're
me?
here.
Did you
Is Bella here?
have this set up beforehand? The fuck?
No,
What?
she made a comment and I didn't write it down.
So we'll never know.
Never know.
Now, let me look it
Guys,
up.
I got distracted by
Oh,
Hey,
I got distracted by
Bella!
Bloodborne video essay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, fair.
If that tells you where I'm at emotionally. What can your resident history nerd do for you? What do you guys need?
Okay. I haven't written it down, but what was the recent police study?
Oh, okay. So there was one ACAB. But
Yes.
Nice,
anything from this
nice.
case.
Yeah,
You learn
pretty
anything from
much.
this case. Cops are so incompetent. ACAB.
but also I gotta point out that many European countries do a way better job of training police. Like I think in America it's like 9 months it takes to become just like a basic police officer. And then but like in Germany, for example, it takes like minimum of 4 years. It's like the equivalent of like a university degree. Give me a second because I don't want to fuck it up and I have it in my history. Here it is. So I think it was for a class, 15 students of the police academy examined the case using modern investigation techniques. So using like the photos left over, reports and stuff. They confirmed that it was indeed a meticulous investigation that took a lot of time, but they criticized it for like the lack of forensics because there was stuff available to the cops at the time that they could have used but didn't. And like the big one was like they didn't do any fingerprint taking from any of the suspects, and that was like pretty common in Europe at this time that you would still like take fingerprints because I think a lot of like the law and the police at this point in time were aware that the skills for investigating crimes was eventually going to progress, and so even like really, really cold cases, they would still like take photos, do fingerprints, write down meticulous notes, and then store them really well because they would assume at some point science would progress and they would do stuff. But they didn't take any fingerprints from any of the suspects. Anyway, they all agreed that the murder or murderers would no longer be able to be identified because they'd be dead. And it says all 15 of the authors independently agreed on the main suspect of the case. So they all agreed, all 15 of the students agreed on who was likely the murderer, but they did not include his name, because the suspect like still has living descendants in Germany, I would assume. Yeah, that's what I got.
So they have an answer, but they just haven't provided it publicly.
Yeah. Well, they have a pretty solid answer. They can't confirm it because of obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, and how dare Wikipedia include that last sentence?
I know, it's just such a cock
Like
tease,
the
really.
Wikipedia-
Wait, what are you talking about?
The Wikipedia like included the like last line of like the authors found like all
Oh.
agree on who the suspect is, but like don't name it. And I'm just like, you didn't have to include that. Wikipedia, you could have just left that out.
I know. I was quite happy not knowing, but now that I know that they have a, near
It's relatively
definitive
recent as
answer.
well.
Yeah.
This happened in like 2007. So like,
Oh wow.
I probably in my spare time will probably go down some
Rabbit
fucked up
hole.
rabbit hole.
Maybe it's one of the people we suspected.
Who knows? Wow.
Kind of interesting that they actually had an answer to this though. That's crazy.
All right. You have anything else to say?
Nothing interesting.
Nothing.
No, I'm gonna try and see if I can translate any of it because I want to know what the answer is, but this is not gonna work. I can tell already. The whole thing is in German.
Bella, put the mic down.
No.
Bella, it fucks with the audio.
Yo, what is happening?
It sounds awful.
Keep moving now.
Yeah, final thoughts. Incest is bad.
True.
I don't know about
Wait, hold up.
that.
Yeah, if you have a bunch of weird noises coming from your attic,
Fucking
Please.
run. Fucking run.
and you choose to investigate it yourself and find nothing, and yet weird stuff keeps happening after it, like, ask for help.
Or burn the whole
Yeah.
place down.
Or like move. Like there's no harm in asking for help, guys.
Like white people in horror movies where it's like they hear something and go towards it. Like,
Yeah.
bro, run. Just leave.
Well, as you
Don't
use...
go up to women's window at night. And
Oh yeah,
just
no, fuck
attack.
that.
Like,
Yeah. Fucking. Ugh. And
um,
also a cab.
oh yeah,
Of course.
100%. Moral of the story.
Moral of the story: a cab, and that's it.
This is really frustrating me that it's unsolved because I really I want to know if it was someone had something against CJ and decided to make her suffer the most by slitting her throat and killing her family.
Yeah, but the thing is, she was the only person that had that treatment. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah. Was it
and she was left
Really
there for
was it-
hours.
was it really something against her, or was it like you guessed earlier that I don't know, they were surprised by seeing her and just acted on instinct and slit her throat.
Yeah.
Just decided to keep moving.
Or
Yeah, but if you
potentially-
did that, why would you not do that and then finish it off?
Yeah.
Potentially, it could have just been anger towards Cecilia, because we were talking about some of the suspects potentially being Joseph's father, like several of them potentially
Yeah.
being his father, but nothing was mentioned about Cecilia's father. As to that, so like maybe they just did that to her because she wasn't their child and it was a child with the woman they loved with another man.
I would assume that Cecilia was the father was Carl.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So the father would be not of the suspect or not of the perpetrator,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So that the anger is towards Cecilia because it's the child, not of theirs, but of the woman they love.
Yeah.
Whereas Joseph would have been theirs. I don't know. It's a theory. A game theory.
A game theory. That was the Hinterkaifeck murders. And that was Case of Conspiracy. Subscribe. Get your bing bong notification in check.
Yeah. Hit
Like
that
and
bell.
comment. Hit that bell.
Bing
Don't know
bong
what
my
that
bell.
is. Do it.
Check out our album.
Yeah.
Check out our album.
Our album. Check it out.
It's called Fraggle.
It's
Yeah.
called Fraggle Mind.
Fragile mind, you know?
Fragile Mind by Lochie
Mind.
by Lochie Thorne.
And like this video.
Yeah, man.
Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell.
And subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts.
Oh,
Oh,
5 stars.
5 stars.
Um,
Only 5 stars. Actually, no, we can't say that.
Well, if we're on Apple and you listen there, review us and we'll read it out next episode.
Exactly. We'll pick a review to read out next episode.
And leave a comment of any cases you want.
Yeah, or if there's anything that we missed, leave us a comment.
Yeah.
Nice.
Or if you did it.
Or if you did it,
Yeah.
you
Out yourself.
crazy,
Time traveler.
you crazy time traveler.